Here and joining us on the guest line now with the National Weather Service meteorologist Chad Entremont. How are you doing today, Chad?
Hey, Dave. Doing well.
Well, all things considered, I guess. You can't say you're doing great right now because of Sally coming in. You guys are a little bit on the busy side. I know we just had an update that came out at 10 o'clock. What's the latest on Sally and what are our expectations?
No, yes. The latest is still Tropical Storm Sally right now, but it's trying to get better organized. The pressure is steadily falling, and thus the response from that is the wind speeds have increased a little bit. So maximum wind speeds right now are at 65 miles an hour. Similar kind of forecast, as the last couple days, kind of steadily strengthening. As it slowly approaches the coast to, kind of a lower end hurricane. So the critical part is the evolution, like over the next 24, maybe 36 hours, as it does approach, the Mississippi coast and kind of that far eastern and southeastern Louisiana. And what we're looking for, it's going to generally move in that area of the Chandelier Islands and that's south of the Mississippi coast, but it's going to be moving slow. And then the critical thing is the details, and when it wants to make this northward and then eventually a northeastward turn. There's still a lot of differences, and is it going to be one particular location, or is it going to be 5 miles or 20 miles east of that? But overall, don't focus in on just one location is what we want to say. That the biggest impacts are going to be on the Mississippi coast and those coastal areas, the coastal counties, and then inland 1-2 tiers from the coast.
Now, let me ask you this, because one thing that I have noticed keeping up with this over the last 48 hours, that forecast path that the National Hurricane Center is putting out seems to keep slowly shifting over to the east. Do they expect that to continue?
You're right. That has been the trend. It has been more to the east. That should, how far east should start we're kind of honing in, so it should be not as much to the east. It should be more focused in kind of the area that it is currently forecast right now. Subtle shifts could occur, but overall, try not to focus in any change of 5 or 10 miles because that's kind of in the noise. But it's generally going to be making landfall on the Mississippi coast. But the key is it's moving real slow, and whenever we have slow moving, tropical systems, rainfall tends to be a huge issue and causes some impacts. And right now, for the coastal counties and just inland, areas could see definitely 10 to 15 inches of rain, and it could be some higher amounts that may approach 20 inches when this is all said and done. In addition to that, anytime there's easterly winds on the Mississippi coast, the water comes up. So there's a surge component to this as well, because there's going to be a lot of easterly wind and eventually some southeast winds to help push the water in. And we're still looking at, surge potential, and it'll vary depending on what part of the coast you are. This is not a very large storm, but there's going to be some opportunity for some of the Mississippi coast to see anywhere from 7 to 11 feet of surge. And then the more east you go towards Mobile Bay, it's going to vary as well. And, I'm trying to do a number on the potential surge over there. Yeah, it looks like, maybe 5 to 8 feet. And then the more you go to the Mobile Bay, it may be more like 4 to 7 feet. So there's a pretty wide range of overall surge that could be anywhere from, 5 to 11 feet, essentially, if you kind of put all the pieces together.
Well, and to me, the one fear, and I don't really see anything that would cause this to completely happen, but it's moving so slowly, it's a possibility. Do you think there's a chance that either right off the coastline or as it comes in, this thing could slow down even further or even stall?
It doesn't look. I mean, it's already going to be moving pretty slow when it's going to try to make this northward and then northeastward turn. But nothing is showing that it will stall. So that's a good thing. But still, very slow movement means a longer duration of this really intense tropical rainfall. One other thing too, especially for the coastal counties and the counties just one tier inland north of I-10. you're still going to have this landfalling low-end hurricane and tropical storm for sure for some time. So you're going to have wind speeds and wind gusts that are going to range from 40 to definitely 50 miles an hour, and there's going to be some winds that are going to especially be in the 60 to 70, maybe even 80 right on the immediate coast. What that typically gives us, it's going to give us a lot of downed trees, power lines. Power outages are going to linger, for probably multiple days, especially the closer you are to the coast. So that'll be a big impact for those parts of the state as well.
Now, it looks like as this forecast path continues to shift to the east, and this storm, as usual, has most of its bad activity up in the northeast quadrant. West Mississippi, if it continues on the path and makes that hook that they're projecting it to make as soon as it makes landfall over hard east almost, it looks like the west half of Mississippi might get off a little lighter than we thought they were going to as late as yesterday.
No, and that's a good point. And yeah, they're almost going to be little to no impacts from kind of central and west Mississippi due to the current projected path and what we're thinking. You kind of in the Pine Belt and generally the I-59 corridor, from Hattiesburg maybe up to Meridian. That 59 corridor, generally speaking, right? And east of there is probably going to see the biggest impact from rainfall and even some wind. The wind won't be as strong up that way as it will be down on the coast, but you're still going to see anywhere from 30 to 40 mile an hour wind and some higher gusts, maybe to 50 in that 59 corridor, and that's still going to cause some issues with down trees and some down power lines, and there's probably going to be some areas that get more of that 40 to 50 mile per hour wind gusts. You may see some power outages there. That may be a couple days, something like that.
What do you think the chances are of getting some spin-up tornadoes out of this thing?
For most of Mississippi, fairly low because the majority of our counties for the state are going to be on that western side. So that's more conducive to not seeing kind of tornadoes. The majority of if any had happened, they'll be on the east of the center. So that'll be more in Alabama.
So the latest information that we have, landfall is going to be what, late tomorrow night now?
That's the way it looks, yes. I'm trying to get my map up here. Late to bit. So most of the impacts are going to be, in that overnight time frame tomorrow, so Tuesday night into early Wednesday, and potential landfall, as you said, during the overnight into Tuesday, probably sometime after midnight into Wednesday morning.
Okay, but of course, especially along the coast, but in other portions of the state, we'll start seeing the impacts earlier than that. I mean, I'm sitting in Jackson right now, and it's cloudy and overcast and breezy and everything else outside. Is that tied into it?
Well, we're in up in the central part of Mississippi. We're just on the outer periphery, so it's somewhat tied to the storm. But you mentioned a good thing about when can some parts of the state see some impacts before the storm comes ashore, and parts of the state will, and so that's a good point. So by maybe as early as late tomorrow afternoon, the coast is already seeing high tides now due to the east wind, but more impacts will really increase on the coastal areas by later in the afternoon tomorrow. And then that will steadily kind of move inland and then through that I-59 corridor as you go through tomorrow night into early Wednesday. But the big focus, that we touched on in terms of impacts is the surge and the wind and the rainfall on the coast, on the immediate coast, and then gradually decreasing wind threat as the Sally moves inland and starts to decay. But there still will be impacts from the wind inland as well, like you described. But also, there's going to be a lot of rainfall associated with it, too, before it starts really pulling off to the northeast on Wednesday.
with the National Weather Service, Chad Entremont. We appreciate your time. I know you have about 8 billion things to do today of all days, so we do appreciate you carving out a couple of minutes for us, and keep us updated, okay?
Will do. Glad to talk to you guys, and thanks for the opportunity. Everybody stay safe, and have your plan in place and listen to all the new information. Y'all have a good day.
Fantastic, Chad. Great job.